Welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. I'm David Kern. I want to quickly apologize for the quality of this episode. I did not have access to the studio when I recorded, so I don't have the good mics, but I wanted to get you a poem anyway. Today is Friday, February 22nd, and yesterday was the day that W.H. Auden was born. He was born on February 21st, 1907. So I thought it seemed like the right time to share with you another Auden poem. I believe I've read 3 other poems by Auden on this podcast. And the one that I'm going to share with you today is a villanelle called If I Could Tell You. It was written around 1940 during the early years of World War II. And I mentioned that it's a villanelle because I think that that's important given the themes of this poem, and I'll talk about why in a few minutes. But first, here is W.H. Auden's If I Could Tell You. Time will say nothing but I told you so. Time only knows the price we have to pay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. If we should weep when clowns put on their show, if we should stumble when musicians play, time will say nothing but I told you so. There are no fortunes to be told, although because I love you more than I can say, if I could tell you, I would let you know. The winds must come from somewhere when they blow. There must be reason why the leaves decay. Time will say nothing but I told you so. Perhaps the roses really want to grow. The vision seriously intends to stay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. Suppose the lions all get up and go, and the brooks and soldiers run away. Will time say nothing but I told you so? If I could tell you, I would let you know. So as you know, the villanelle is a somewhat strict form. It consists of 19 lines of 5 tercets followed by a quatrain. So it's got 5 3-line stanzas and then a 4-line stanza, that quatrain at the end. And there are 2 repeating rhymes, the first and third line of each stanza. And that's a fairly strict rhyming scheme. And then, of course, there are repetitive lines throughout. I've read several villanelles on this podcast. It's one of my favorite forms. But it's fascinating to me that he chooses to use this form for this particular poem, for this particular theme, and these particular lines. As I mentioned, this is a poem that was written during the early years of World War II in October of 1940. And it's a poem that is about lack of control, lack of knowledge, about the gray areas that we often have to live our lives in. And so in a poem about that, Auden is adding a strict form to it. And the application of that form seems to be in keeping with or indicate or be a sort of correlative for the ways that we all wish we could live our lives. You know, there's some poetic irony in the use of this form in a way that is classic Auden, which is one of the things that I really love about his work. The tone of the poem is obviously quite uncertain. There's a longing for clarity behind it. There's even an intimacy behind it that says, if I could find the answers, I would share them with you. And yet, unpredictability is the way of the world. And like many of Auden's poems, they're dealing with a world that is increasingly unpredictable. It's not the normal run-of-the-mill unpredictability. It's the unpredictability of a world at war, and it's the unpredictability that came to measure the 20th century. And it's one of the reasons why Auden is one of our most beloved poets of that era, because he was reckoning with that unpredictability in such a rich way, in such a profound way. And yet Auden seems to be holding on to some hope that there is some greater purpose in the world and behind that unpredictability, or at least in spite of that unpredictability. He says, the winds must come from somewhere when they blow. There must be reasons why the leaves decay. Time will say nothing but I told you so. In my reading, I insert that but before that third line of that stanza. I may or may not be right about that, but my instinct is to do that, and I think that that's the implication there. There must be reasons, but time will say nothing but I told you so. And he says, perhaps the roses really want to grow. The vision seriously intends to say, if I could tell you, I would let you know. So the poet seems to be vacillating back and forth between a belief, a faith that there is a purpose behind the chaos, that there is a hope despite the chaos, and a sense of fear of the unknown. And I'm grateful personally that Auden is somebody who has grappled with that in a way that allows us to grapple with that with him. This is not what I would call a complicated poem, but it is a very rich and profound poem, and the form really helps generate a lot of that profundity and the poetic irony that it offers. So here is one more time, If I Could Tell You by W.H. Auden. Time will say nothing but I told you so. Time only knows the price we have to pay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. If we should weep when clowns put on their show, if we should stumble when musicians play, time will say nothing but I told you so. There are no fortunes to be told, although, because I love you more than I can say, if I could tell you, I would let you know. The winds must come from somewhere when they blow. There must be reasons why the leaves decay. Time will say nothing but I told you so. Perhaps the roses really want to grow. The vision it seriously intends to stay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. Suppose the lions all get up and go, and all the brooks and soldiers run away. Will time say nothing but I told you so? If I could tell you, I would let you know. This has been the Daily Poem. Thanks so much for listening. Be back on Monday with another poem for you.